This is Brew City Lounge.
Answers back. His first bucket of the fourth quarter. And now with 36 for the game.
Yelich sends this one out to center. Bader racing back. He looks up and it is gone. Christian Yelich goes deep.
This podcast is for the number one Bucks fans and Brewers fans in the world and is part of the Lounge Room Network.
Fielder launches. Prince Fielder. Ball game. Giannis got the rebound. Good and one. Wow, he's so strong.
Here's your host, Brandon Snide.
Hey everyone, welcome to another awesome episode of the Brew City Lounge. I am your host, Brandon. You can follow me on Twitter at Wisco_Brandon. Very, very, very happy you are tuning in, whether you on the live stream. I know it's a weird time of the day, but hey, I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you for that. If you're checking out the show, wherever you get your podcasts, it's an absolute honor and privilege to be here to talk about our favorite teams with you. Of course, I'm talking about the Milwaukee Bucks and Brewers. Hope everyone out there is doing good. For my Star Wars fans, may the 4th be with you. That's getting a lot of traction on Twitter. Lots to talk about. Lots to dive into. Here shortly, I will be joined by a special guest, Bill Schmid of 97.3 The Game out of Milwaukee. He's also a national night host on Sports Map Radio. Excited to get his thoughts on all things Bucks and Brewers. Bucks beat the Nets and a big-time thriller Saturday afternoon, 117-114. They close a gap in between the still in the 3 seed. So we'll dive into the seeding and who they're possibly playing. Excited to get his thoughts on where the Bucks are come playoffs, come seeding. And the Brewers take 3 out of 4 against the Los Angeles Dodgers as an absolutely huge series win. I mean, you're talking about 16 players on the IL, and you go in to a 4-game series with the Dodgers, and you take 3 out of 4. Saturday night's game was an absolute thriller. Extra inning win. Travis Shaw comes up clutch. So that was an absolute huge series win. It took a tough one on last night. We'll get into that as well and kind of get Bill Schmid's thoughts and my thoughts on where that game was last night going into tonight. The Bucks are also home tonight against the Nets. And speaking of the Bucks, we're going to kind of talk a little bit about Dante DiVincenzo and the early struggles that we're having with him. And I hate to be so negative about a guy. I absolutely love Dante DiVincenzo. I was really high on him going into this year. So we're going to see where he's at going forward. Is there any concern with him going into the playoffs? How worried are you? No points against the Nets on Saturday. But before we dive into all that stuff, I do want to announce once again, happy to announce that the Brew City Lounge has officially partnered with the guys over at Fanatics. You can follow the show on Facebook and Twitter. The link is pinned to the top. Please click that link. Shop for your favorite teams. It's absolutely, they have like everything going on right now. If you're a Bears fan, you got the Justin Fields jersey. Yeah, all kinds of good stuff. All the draft stuff that from over the past weekend. And unfortunately, if you're a Packers fan, you know all about the news that we're talking about. But joining me now, brought to you by the folks over at One Call Technology. Give them a call at 888-585-8850 for all your business telecom needs. I am joined now by Bill Schmid out of 97.3 The Game out of Milwaukee. Also the national night host for Sports Map Radio. You can follow him on Twitter at Bill Schmid Radio. I am super stoked about this guy. He has been one of my favorite guys to follow and interact with. Also, like one of my Vegas friends. That's a story we'll get into later. Billy, man, thanks for joining the show. I know you're a busy man. How you doing, man?
What's going on, brother? Hey, it's great hearing from you, dude. And yeah, the Vegas trip was at Circa when you and I first encountered each other, and all of a sudden you look over and somebody goes, "Billy,
yeah,
what happened? What did I do? What list am I on?" So thanks for having me on, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it was really cool. I went home and told my family and friends. I'm like, I'm sitting at a slot, we're having a drink, and I look over and I see Austin, Texas, another guy over at 12:50 a.m. fan, awesome dude. And then Billy walks in, and you can know somebody's from Wisconsin because Billy had on the Bucks shirt, the jersey, I believe it was.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, I know that guy. And so we got to talk and went over and saw Tim. I've been trying to get Tim on the show. So when you're done here, you got to put in a good word for me because I called him.
I will.
I called him the other day on the post game and Ray, we went back and forth about the Brewers, but just really happy to have you, man. I appreciate you taking the time.
No doubt, man.
This is the Brew City Lounge podcast. It's a solo show that I do. It's focused around the Bucks and the Brewers and plenty to talk about. We're going to start off with the Bucks. They beat the Nets 117-114. I go on the show every week and I'm very high or very low about this Bucks team. And I don't know what to make of them, man. I really don't know what to make of them. They beat the Nets 117-114. Giannis goes off for 49 points. You withstand KD's 42 points. And then they played a game a couple weeks ago and against struggling Hornets and they lose. And it's just like,
no doubt.
What? So I know the NBA is up and down. Everybody's hurt, everybody's resting. But what are your thoughts on this Bucks team going forward? We're a couple weeks before the playoffs. What are some of your thoughts about this team?
Well, I like that you bring up first off the game this weekend against Brooklyn because it was a knockout drag-out game, right? And when you see those two teams, thank you if we get blessed with that for a 7-game series. Like I'm going to be down with that, no doubt about it, hand over fist. They match up really well against Brooklyn. And when James Harden comes back, it will be a very different story, right? When you add a top 7-10 player in the NBA, wherever people have him ranked, he's one of the best players in the league, right? Mm-hmm. Bar none. So once he comes back into the fold, they're a different squad. But what they still don't do is get stops, right? Like for Brooklyn, they still don't play much defense. And when they traded for James, they shipped out some of their best defense and guys that could legitimately, I think, slow down Giannis. When you talk about a Jared Allen and company like that, Karis LeVert, you could score with them. But they match up well doing exactly what Giannis did on Sunday. And I've been waiting, Brandon, for these kind of moments where Giannis sits up and says, hold on, they're going to put this cat on me again? All right, hey, let me see this rock. And DeAndre Jordan comes back down the next time down. All right, still ain't learned anything. Let me see this rock again. And he puts up 14 straight buckets on him. Like that part of it is he is that good and he can take over games like that. But there have been multiple times, and us that have watched the team, and especially in the playoffs, right, where he doesn't disappear for moments and stretches in the game, but his aggressiveness backs off for sets and times in the game. And that's where, if they're going to beat Brooklyn and they're going to beat Philadelphia and get to the NBA Finals and win the Eastern Conference at 4.5 or 425, I saw most recently, as they continue to drop down, there's value there for a team that's now been in the postseason 3 straight years, played together 3 straight years. That's a very different Philadelphia team. Obviously, we know how different Brooklyn is. And the Bucks are very different, right? Like, there's no doubt about it. They have a brand new point guard and maybe a second best player on the team in Drew Holiday. But
I agree with that.
What they have right now is they still got another 3-week stretch to really get right going into the postseason. I've been wanting them to go after the 1 seed for the last couple of 6 weeks or so because I thought it was right there for the taking, and still it kind of is, but 3 games back in the L column with 8 to go against Philadelphia. They'll probably be in that 2-3 matchup with Brooklyn coming up. And I know that it's KD, who's one of the best players I've ever witnessed. James Harden is one of the best players in the league, and Kyrie Irving, who is incredible, but what do you know what you're going to get out of that cat? I think they genuinely match up really well against Brooklyn. So going into the postseason, I'm as optimistic as I've ever been with these guys, going back towards 19, where I actually thought they were going to the NBA Finals. And Brandon, if I could tell you a quick story.
Absolutely.
First, when they lost to Toronto in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals, I was somewhere in Illinois. I was rolling through. It was like Memorial Day weekend, and one of my best friends from college had gotten married on Friday, right? I had just started dating my girlfriend at the time, who's still my girlfriend right now. I always say that bad when I say current girlfriend, and that sounds a little sticky.
Wait a minute.
Issues over here.
Let me backtrack real quick.
Right. Brew City Lounge. I know, the drinks get flowing. You might say some random stuff, but I'm sitting there watching this game with her entire extended family. and I'm freaking out. It's game 6. I just watched us blow a 15-point lead in the fourth quarter in game 5. Like, thanks, bro. And then going into the fourth quarter, right, they were up 12 or so in game 6. And I'm sitting here shredding up bar napkins. I mean, dude, there was a pile of like 15, 20 bar napkins. They thought I was a serial killer. And like that part of it, I just booked out of the room because I genuinely thought that was your best chance to win a title. I think this is one of their better chances to get back. And I do think they're in a really, really nice position to do so.
Yeah. And the thing that with Bucks fans is well, you're Milwaukee, Wisconsin guy, Bucks guy, is that we're waiting for that shoe to drop, so to speak. We're waiting for that. Okay, obviously we're due. I don't, nobody's a secret to the Packers drama right now. We're all waiting for, what's going to happen come, for that next shoe to drop. And with the Bucks fans, it's always the negative. You jump on Twitter and you hear, you see 1,000, I call it the dark web. You see 1,000 tweets about why they can't win the title. Like why, why they're so, inferior to Brooklyn and maybe Philly. And first off, Philly doesn't scare me one bit. But then you dive into it a little bit and you look at, okay, this Bucks team, arguably the best player in the league on your team. Just so everybody's aware, Drew Holiday is not Eric Bledsoe. No offense to Eric Bledsoe. I don't want to shame anybody on the show. Drew Holiday is much better on both sides of the ball.
You can shame that man. You can shame that man. When he turned around and then reset and rolled back into a 32-footer in the postseason, you can shame that man. Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Hey, that's what it is. That's what we're about here. So you look at the Eastern Conference, like, okay, when LeBron James left, you're like, this is Giannis's conference. This is it. There shouldn't be any more issues as far as superstars for the next few years. Obviously, Toronto, that was probably your best chance of getting to the finals and probably winning the finals. But now I look at this Bucks team currently sitting at the 3 seed. They're 3.5 games out of the number 1 seed. And I'm not like a huge, we need the number 1 seed. I think seeding this year is a little bit more important than it has been. Right now, you look at this Bucks team and if the season were to end now, I know we love hypotheticals. They would have to go through Miami, who they lost to last year in the bubble. Defensively, they match up really well with Giannis. You got to go through Miami. Then you would get Brooklyn. And then if you get through that, then you're probably playing Philly. That's just to get to the finals. And then you're obviously matching up probably against the Lakers or the Clippers, maybe Phoenix. So it's a gauntlet, to say the least. I mean, what are your thoughts as far as their matchups in the playoffs? Because you're looking at either Boston, Miami, or Atlanta.
I love it.
Atlanta plays us tough, and then we're going to have to – if you match up with Atlanta, you're going to have to hear about the Bogdanovich trade blunder, which we'll get to in a little bit, talking about Dante DiVincenzo. So is this a team going forward, getting into the playoffs with that first-round matchup, going into the second round, getting into the Eastern Conference Finals? Do you think that they could get there? Like, that's tough, man. That's a hard – I mean, that first round is hard.
It's a run. Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And that's one of the reasons why I've been and it falls on deaf ears because, like you just mentioned about the dark web, that's awesome. And I hope that you know that I'm going to steal that. They come out here and they roll out like, why can't you win the finals? Why you won't win the finals? And I'm just trying to get to the next round. Like that's the only way. You can only win the games that are in front of you. And I know that's super cliche, but it's a cliche because it's a fact, right? Like it's a straight up fact. You can't win the second round of the NBA playoffs this week. But what you can do is you could have set yourself up to avoid either Philadelphia or Brooklyn. And that's just a fact. You also could have set yourself up to play, I don't know, Washington, thanks. Like if I'm going to be able to get one of those teams that's in the play-in tournament, I know you lost one game to Charlotte, but are we really that worried about LaMelo? I love the guy. He's made my League Pass subscription actually worth it. But like, what are you waiting for here? And to set up against Miami, you're exactly right. They match up so well against Giannis defensively. Yeah, without Jay Crowder, I think it's a little bit different story. So that part of it is good. And my Whitnell guy, Tyler Hero, is more infatuated with the IG models. But hey, no one's going to blame him about that. Then you go on to the other side of it and say you get past Miami, say you grind it out in 6 games. And I think you should. I do still believe you're a better team than Miami, top to bottom, even with Bryn Forbes playing large minutes. Then you slide it over to the Brooklyn piece where I really like the matchup there. I love seeing Giannis down on the block, Brandon. Get to your post. Same with Brook Lopez. I love that you can shoot threes, dude. I really do. It's amazing. It's like evolving your game. But this guy made $20 million a year in the NBA, being one of the most ferocious paint scorers in the game, averaging 20 a game down low. And you don't have to go away from that just because you want to shoot threes. So I think they play down low against Brooklyn, and they're going to eat those cats up down low. And it's just going to depend on how many times does KD or Kyrie and James, if he's healthy, which is still a big if, right? Like, we haven't even heard that he's back on a treadmill with his hamstring injury.
Yeah,
so
no. And obviously that's a big part of his game. I mean, that shiftiness and that,
100%.
Yeah, I mean, and I love that you brought that up, because for I've only been doing this podcast. We've been going on like a month, so it's fairly new.
First off, next time I'm on, I got to get down into that lounge, because that place looks
it's
smooth.
I've actually have stuff. We're getting way off topic, but that's perfectly fine. I have stuff underneath my table because I have no room on my wall anymore, and I have a problem, and I keep buying stuff because I can't. I jump on eBay and I'm like, well, I could use it eventually, and then it just sits here because I have no room for it.
Turning this place into Price's Collectibles.
Yeah,
over here.
But for the last few shows, I've been going on a rant, and I've had, Ryan Horvat was on a couple weeks ago. I've had Sparky on, those guys. And I said, you bring in Drew Holiday and you pay him, it was like 135, has a chance to get up to 160. For all things on this planet Earth, why is Giannis, Chris Middleton, or Dante DiVincenzo bringing the ball up court? Like, it drives me nuts. Drew Holiday is one of the best point guards, and I'm very confident in saying that, one of the best point guards in the NBA. Why is your 6'11"? Why is your 6'8" 2 guard, your 4 guard? Why are they bringing the ball up court? Run the offense. And again, I'm not calling for Bud. Maybe there's something behind the scenes where Drew's like, hey, I play better off the ball. I don't know. But Chris Middleton can barely dribble the ball. Like, and no offense to him. He's not a very good ball handler. I want to see Drew Holiday bring that ball up. I want to see Giannis down on the block. You cannot name me a player. Maybe Bam Adebayo in Miami. That is going to body up Giannis on that block. If he catches that ball down low, I mean, there's nobody, maybe Bam, that is going to defend him consistently. He's going to drop 20, 30 points just in the paint, just easily. And I don't understand. It blows my mind. I don't know. Like, it's frustrating because Giannis, 10 seconds on the shot clock. Giannis catches the ball at the top of the key, and we all know what's going to happen. The defense is going to sag. They're going to clog the lane. He's going to get a charging call 8 out of 10 times, and maybe he'll get, there'll be a blocking call. But we all know what's going to happen. Everybody knows what's going to happen. It's very predictable. It's frustrating to see that, off that half court offense and then Brook Lopez is 40 feet, from the rim. Like, you're 7 foot, dude. He gets 1 rebound a game. Like, it's frustrating as a casual basketball. I mean, I'm not the best, I'm not the top of the line basketball IQ, but I look at a game and I'm watching like, okay, you have a point guard. Why is he playing in the corner? You have Giannis, who's 6'11", who's got the wingspan of an airplane. Like, why is he bringing up the ball? I mean, what are your thoughts like on that aspect of it? Like, the half court offense sometimes seems to get very stale and nobody knows what to do.
Well, I think that's partially because of Jason Kidd, right? When Jason Kidd kind of created the monster of, we're going to let this cat start up the offense and be the point guard, there's levels to that, right? Then there's going to be limits to it. And I think they're kind of finding those limits. You mentioned it. Bam is, and I was trying to rack my brain. Like, you get to the finals, AD, okay.
Maybe.
Right? Like, AD is the only other guy that maybe at that point, and I don't think AD wants to play that physical.
No, absolutely not.
Where if you just let your physicality take over, no one's going to stop you. But we've become very infatuated with the 3-point shot. And Jalen Rose was getting slammed by folks on Buck's Twitter right away. Like, because why is Giannis taking more threes than foul shots?
Yeah.
Somebody make this make sense to me. This cat is the biggest dude in the league, second most imposing figure up against Zion Williamson. And I stand by that because I ain't getting in front of that 6'8", 285-pound freight train. No
totally with you.
Chance, right? Like, so he's like the second most physically imposing cat in the league. Why are you not taking the ball to the cup? And they want him to, but also set him up in more advantageous positions to have the ball around the rim, allow him to finish. That little baby hook that he was just dropping over DeAndre Jordan this weekend was silky. I'd rather watch that than the one dribble and robotically pull up, move the elbow this way and up and through. Like, just go and take it at people. So once he decides that that's how he wants to play, and he did it in the Boston series, a couple of years ago, where in game 3, he looked at Al Horford and said, I am going to eat this guy alive, and it's going to be a public mauling. Somebody's going to have to call the fire department because I'm on fire. Like, this guy's done at this point, fully cooked, medium well. And then you move forward into the postseason. He kind of backed up, right? Like Serge Ibaka in that series played him kind of physically. It was Gasol was there in Toronto and really gave him a couple of firm elbows, and he kind of backed up. You've now hardened over 2 more years going in here. People have kind of jumped off the Giannis bandwagon like he's been in the league for 15 years and flamed out in the postseason. He's only in year 9?
Yeah.
So
people hate Giannis because he's loyal. That's what it comes.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, no doubt about it. That's a great way to put it.
I put it up on Twitter yesterday because somebody had said something like, this man is, came from nothing, 15th overall pick. Nobody knew how to pronounce his name. He looked like he weighed 150 pounds.
They looked like they took the tallest guy out of the crowd.
And they're like, he's turned into a 2-time MVP, Defensive Player of the Year award. Always on, top team in the Eastern Conference. It's just hate. I mean, people hate, Giannis because, he didn't go to LA or he didn't go to New York. And, you see that all the time. And it's unfortunate. As a fan of Milwaukee, working in radio in Milwaukee and in the national spotlight, you know how it goes. But speaking of small market, we're going to transition to our other small market, the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, real small and really good right now. And you look at this team, if you were to told me prior to like last week, hey, you guys will sweep the Padres in San Diego. You'll take the first 3 series against the Cubs to start the year. Oh, and you'll take 3 out of 4 against the Dodgers. Oh, keep in mind, 16 players are on the IL. I would have laughed. And I would have been like, get me to Vegas because that's not happening. No Yelich, no Kane. Corbin Burns now on the IL with COVID. I mean, I don't know what to make of this team. You got Billy McKinney making, Gold Glove catches in left field, and Luis Urias just playing out of his mind at the plate in clutch moments. What are your thoughts on the Brewers?
I love it, dude, and you hit on it right there. Your 2 highest salaried players sitting on the IL too, and when you're not shipping out a bunch of cash left and right, because you can't, right? Like you just really can't pay a bunch of guys top dollar to come play here. They're doing exactly what they need to do during this stretch and so much more. I'm just infatuated with how David Stearns, Matt Arnold, Mark Attanasio as well, because he was a part of the decision, how they structured these contracts for Colton Wong and Jackie Bradley Jr. Now, I know JBJ is not hitting, 250. I get that he's not stealing a bunch of bases. He's playing a good center field when Lorenzo was down and saved you in that department. But they're paying him and Colton Wong like a combined $9 million this year. By the way, they structured these deals and deferred money. That's exactly what we've ever wanted, because everybody else in the division, the Cubs, right, just locked up that beautiful marquee network, brought in my guy Boog Shambi over there to call games, and cut their salary by like $40 million and said, yeah, Chris Bryant's probably going to go. Anthony Rizzo, yeah, we don't have any money for him. Javi Baez probably going to be on the way out. They traded Yu Darvish for a bag of baseballs so they could get his salary off the books. They gave away so much money, and look at what the Reds did as well. They had a big offseason and had to come back down to earth because they were like, pump the brakes. We weren't as good as we thought. We're not trying to spend this kind of cash. Bob Nutting is allergic to spending money in Pittsburgh, and the Cardinals are the Cardinals, right? And I think it's going to come down to the Cardinals at the end of the day and the Brewers. But what they've done is they've given themselves some cushion for when these guys do come back and inevitably slump, like Avisail Garcia seems to have done pretty much the entire time that he's been with the Brewers. You give yourself a little bit of leeway there. And they've given themselves a cushion right here where I mean, I know you were watching the Ned Yost Brewers where they'd start out 24-10 and we're like, we're winning the World Series. And then by July, you're in third place, right? Like then it's over and the June swoon slaps you in the teeth and you're done. This is much more sustainable. I don't know how they're doing it, but they're getting contributions from guys they definitely need. And all of this as well with 16 guys on the injured list and the 9th overall pick, dude that you actually thought was going to be a meat of the order kind of guy, is missing 85-mile-an-hour fastballs down the pipe, and now has gotten sent down to AAA and Keston Hiura, man. Like, they've not only dealt with injuries, they've dealt with regression, and they're 6 games over 500. I don't exactly know how they've done it, but I do know a lot of it's because of the foundation that Craig has set in place. Tim and I talked to David Phelps last year at spring training, just before everything went nuclear, and they found out that the media guys were giving people COVID and locked everybody out of the locker rooms. We were talking to David Phelps and just asked him, like, hey, man, you've played for the Yankees, you played for the Cubs, you played for all these great teams in great moments. Why'd you choose Milwaukee? And he said, because when you sign here, you know you're going to be able to contribute. Even if you're the 34th guy on the team, you know you're going to get a chance to play. And you're going to have a chance to win a game and win games. And he told us a story about when they walked down through the Miller Park visiting clubhouse into the locker room, and everybody on the Cubs team was looking at each other like, how did those guys just take 3 of 4 from us and donkey us in game 4? Like, it makes no sense how we just got stomped by these guys, but they do it and then laugh and smile about it and have a great time doing it. That's intriguing for players around the league. And you're going to get more guys that kind of buy into your salary structure like Colton Wong and JBJ did when you're winning games like that, I think.
Yeah, and it goes to show, like, and I don't think that they get the credit that they deserve because of the, MLB is all about big market. We all know that they don't have the TV deals and the revenue that these bigger markets have. But I've had a few players on the show, Tim Dillard, Vinny Rottino, and I asked them, I said, if you could describe this Brewers team, in a few words or maybe a word. And they both, I know they work together over at Bally Sports, but they both said, depth.
Yeah.
Like what David Stearns has done is completely gone under the radar because of where he's at. I mean, had this been, you just took 3 out of 4 against a team whose payroll like triples yours. And you got guys like Billy McKinney, Tyrone Taylor, I know he was sent back down, but Tyrone Taylor, Daniel Vogelbach, you trade away RC and you put a lot of stock into Urias, and now he's coming up clutch. And if you were to tell me at the beginning of the year you'd have a winning record, you'd be at top of the NL Central and almost the top of the NL. They were as of yesterday. Last night's loss was a punch in the chin, but I would have laughed at you. I said, there's with no Yelich and no Lorenzo Cain, and JBJ is struggling. And like you said, Keston Hiura is now at the alternate training site. I would have laughed and I would have said, yeah, okay. Like, who the heck is Billy McKinney? Like, right. And what David Stearns has done, not only this year, but as a GM and now baseball president of operations, what he has done has been phenomenal. It's nothing short of amazing, I think. And I've gone on record saying he's the best general manager in the state that we have. Obviously, there's all kinds of fun stuff going on. Yeah, what he does, what he's taken into this, what the tide he has turned. And really, realistically, if you look at it, Billy, and I'll get your thoughts on this, what I'm about to say next. You're a couple big wins come postseason from a golden era of Brewers baseball, maybe some of the best that we've ever seen. Yep. I wasn't around for 82, or obviously with the Braves. So I mean, I don't know. I can't speak on that stuff. But when you're talking about not going to the playoffs for almost 30 years, now you're there 3 straight years. You have a former MVP on your team, which, by the way, again, went under the radar because of COVID last year, signed a pretty much, lifetime contract with the Milwaukee Brewers. David Stearns is amazing, man. And he doesn't get the credit he deserves. And it's frustrating, as a small market fan that, we always want to be in the limelight. We always want to be talked about. He just doesn't get the credit. And you work in the national, the national radio. I mean, what are some of your thoughts? Maybe what are some other people's thoughts about the Brewers and David Stearns and what he's been able to do?
Well, they're gathering steam. I'll tell you that much right now. Gathering a lot of steam. I talk to a lot of different guys across the league. Scott Miller from CBS or from Sirius MLB Radio comes on quite a bit. Danny Vietti from CBS Sports comes on quite a bit as well here on Sports Map Radio. And shameless plug, I got the billboard right behind us.
I see that, man.
But as we're rolling through here, you have two of the best young pitchers in the game. And Brandon Woodruff, talk about flying under the radar. My man just goes out and eats every fifth day. And it kind of gets forgotten about because Corbin Burns is so good and so dynamic that you kind of forget what Woody is doing as just an absolute constant in the rotation. I couldn't agree with you more. And one of the reasons why I think David Stearns is the best general manager right now in baseball is not every decision that David Stearns makes works. Actually, most recently, I can point out to a couple that were flat out fat L's, right? Like no other way to say it, but a big L when you trade for this cat named Jacob Faria, who is a Packer fan. So we all like that, but he pitched like 6 innings for you, 6 or 7 innings for you. Now, granted, they went to the playoffs and it was outstanding, right? It was amazing, but I'm still looking here saying, hold on. Jesus Aguilar is leading the league in RBIs. Hit 260 last year, is in the midst of about to hit 290. And your first baseman is, like you mentioned, Billy McKinney and another scrap heap DFA guy you got in Daniel Vogelbach, and you're moving a second baseman over to first because you missed that hole. That was an L. But they've been able to, one, continue to try to stockpile different ways and to get away from it. I loved the Vogelbach signing last year, and it goes to exactly what they do. They find dudes that have had major success somewhere in their career, and they don't ask them to do too much. Right? Like the Jed Jerko thing last year. People were blasting it. Why would you bring in this cat? What is Jed Jerko going to do? Craig Counsell's like, I don't know, he mashes against left-handed pitching. Like he career 320 hitter against left-handed pitching. So when there's a left-hander on the mound, we're going to play him. And he was good. He played really, really well when they played him. And it's infuriating when I'm on the postgame show, when I was on the postgame show with Timmy, and Jed Jerko just goes 3-4 with a bomb and 2 doubles. And the next day he's sitting on the bench. You're like, what happened? What are we waiting for here, Craig? But they stick to what they believe in. They stick to their process, stick to their plan, and it's worked out. Another L. Here we go. You brought up Luis Urias, and I think the cat can hit. He's got a professional at bat every single time he walks up. But my man Trent Grisham has a gold glove now, is hitting 300, raking atop the lineup there in San Diego. And maybe he had to get out, right? Maybe everybody in the locker room was going to villainize him for missing a ball in Washington. Newsflash, I don't believe that was the case. Like I'd be absolutely floored if he walked into that locker room and Christian Yelich and Lorenzo Cain like, this bum, what are you doing, dude? Are you serious? Yeah. Get down on the ball and block it. That's not happening. That's not happening there. But what I think it did do was open up once again. They realized they made a mistake. They went out and grabbed JBJ. They've continued to try to find – Billy McKinney was a former first-round pick in 2013 of, I don't know, the Angels or the Cubs or something like that. Played with the Cubs at one point. And they said he was good enough to be a first-round pick at some point. You need to let him be confident in the box, go up against right-handed pitching, and be versatile. And you don't ask them to do too much. When you ask guys to do more than what they excel at, it's one of the things that's always frustrated me with NFL coaches, where we focus on what this kid can't do. Mm-hmm. Like Amari Rodgers. Somebody's going to talk about the 3rd round pick of the Green Bay Packers and say, yeah, well, he can't high point the ball. I don't know. Like he's only 5'8".
Favorite pick of the draft.
Same. And they'll say, oh, he can't high point the ball. He can't really play outside. But he's the most dynamic slot kid in the game, and you can jet sweep him all day. Like, put guys in advantageous positions to be successful, and you'll be successful. It's going to be harder for you. It's going to be harder as a coach, but that's what you're getting paid for. It's one of the reasons why I love Matt LaFleur. It's one of the reasons why I love Craig, because they don't put guys in positions that they are not comfortable with and that they don't succeed in.
And that's another, that's another thing about the Milwaukee Brewers and the way that Craig Counsell, you mentioned Craig Counsell, has kind of turned obviously the cultural in Milwaukee, but he's changed the way the game is managed, and MLB is trying their hardest to make sure that doesn't happen. With the minimum innings, that relievers can pitch. And I remember that game against, I believe it was the Dodgers, where they put out was it Wade Miley for one at bat and they took him out. So he's changing the game. He's changing the way that the game is managed, and he's turning it into the favor of the Milwaukee Brewers. But the only thing I'm kind of worried about going in, week 6 of the season, we're only a few weeks in. Mm-hmm. The batting, obviously you didn't have Yelich, you don't have Kane for part of the season. Yelich has been out for almost the entirety since April 11th. His first game was last night, and he immediately made his impact. But I mean, you talk about offensively, they're 20th in runs, they're 27th in batting average, they're last in the NL. They're second from last in hitting with runners in scoring position. Last night they were 2 for 12. Their on base percentage is at the bottom, and their slugging percentage is at the bottom. Is that just early season struggles? Is that wait till the weather warms up, the bats warm up, so to speak? Is that you had Yelich out, you had Kane out, but like you said, Keston struggling, JBJ struggling, Avi struggling. Mm-hmm. To be at 17-12, atop of the NL Central, and be at almost the bottom of every offensive category in baseball is remarkable. But it is concerning. You watch that game last. You watch that game last night, and again, if you didn't catch the game last night, the Brewers did lose 4-3. They had a bases loaded in the top of the ninth and had an opportunity. I think there was like one out. Maybe at one point there were no outs. You had an opportunity to take that game, and it was a frustrating game. Again, it's only May 3rd, and it doesn't matter, but it was a game last night that you should have won had you been able to hit in those spots in the top of the ninth, and I believe they even had a threat in the top of the eighth, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think they had a couple on in the top of the eighth too,
yeah,
right?
So like first and second, I think. So it's frustrating, as a fan to see that. I mean, is it concerning to you? They have the most strikeouts in the National League. I mean, they're just struggling offensively, and maybe that turns with a healthy Yelich, and maybe things start to kind of fill in. The pressure's taken off of Keston when he comes back. Maybe Avi, loses a little bit of that pressure. But offensively speaking, obviously the pitching has carried them thus far. Eventually those bats have got to wake up, because I can't see the pitching, being this dominant for this long. They're already hurting, hitting a little bit of a spot with Corbin Burns on the IL. What are your thoughts offensively as far as this Brewers team goes?
Well, they're going to have to get better. Like that's just as flat out as I can say it. They're going to have to hit better. They're going to have to be. They're going to have to strike out less, and that's been one bugaboo over the last couple of years. And it's one of the reasons why Keston's going to go to Nashville and try to figure some stuff out, because he's not cutting down on his almost 40% strikeout rate, which is ridiculous. And I get. Listen, Brandon, I'll be completely honest with you, man. I was a very average baseball player, and that's one of the reasons why I stopped playing when I was in 8th grade, because I was not trying to get into the box while guys were throwing 80, 82, and with some nasty sliders to it. Bump that up 15 miles an hour. No way I'm getting into a box with a cat pumping 97, and I'm going to even touch some of these sliders and curves that are being thrown. But when you are in the box, there's got to be a sense of calm and confidence that you do have. And I've marveled at baseball players for it for years. And being able to, I've been so blessed, dude, to be able to, talk to different guys and interview players. And it's one thing that, frankly, I do not take for granted. I know some guys complain and get frustrated about it. It's the coolest part of the job. And to walk in after a game like last night, right, where you had multiple opportunities, those guys to a man would say in the locker room, probably should have won that one. Guys, we probably let that one slide. But I listened to Christian Yelich earlier on this offseason with Mike Studd. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He used to be a pitcher for Duke, had a really bad arm injury, went into music, and he's made a bunch of money making music, and he's okay. But now he's got this podcast, and he talks to different players. Like, he's really good buddies with Marcus Stroman, and talks to different players. He's had Trevor Bauer on, which was fascinating. If you got an hour to kill, just listen to it.
He's always interesting.
He's so interesting, dude. And like, I get he's weird. I get people don't like him. He's fascinates the hell out of me. But he has Christian Yelich on, and Christian is not a difficult interview, but he wants to trust you. And I completely understand that. You got to be able to trust somebody. And Yelich really opened up in the last, hour or so of this podcast. And he talks about once the uniform comes off, then it's over. I'll sit there, and there are days he admitted where I sit in my uniform in the locker room for 30, 35, 40 minutes because I'm pissed. Like, I don't want – I need to go through what happened. Why did we lose? Why did I suck that day? And I'll take my uniform off, take a shower, and then I got to go home and, decompress, go to bed, and wake up, eat some Chipotle, and go play baseball again. And like, as that rolls through, that kind of calmness that players have been able to exude in Major League Baseball, I've always marveled at. But when you're struggling to get rolling offensively, there's a couple of different things you can do, and there's all the off the wall, somebody bring a goat into the locker room and just change up the mantra, change up the mood. Frankly, I think they just kind of got to get healthy, if I can be honest with you. I think they need to get healthy. And once they do, and once they kind of get rolling here a little bit over the next couple of weeks, they're going to be really, really hard to stop, because this offense is one of, if I look at the roster and I look at the lineup 1 through 8, 1 through 9 on really any given day, outside of when the Daniel Robertson piece is floating in there with his 296 OPS, they're a pretty dynamic offense, man. Like, you look at it with some guys that have had big league success, and Omar Narvaez, one guy that we haven't even mentioned right now, he's their best hitter, and he just went on the IL. And that's a tough one, bro, because I don't know when he's going to be back. That looked like a weird hamstring pull that's not going to be back anytime soon, especially when you got to squat and catch. So I think they are going to get going a little bit here on the offensive side. I think Christian Yelich is one of the biggest reasons why. Seeing him hit 220 last year, I hope you enjoyed it, because it's the last time you're going to see it. And to be able to tap into some of that offensive potential and get everybody else rolling. Colton Wong is holding them afloat like a belt at 425 or whatever he's hitting since coming off the IL. They're going to get better. And frankly, I think right now they're clearly the best team in the division. I love that lineup they have down in St. Louis. And apparently my doppelganger, Bill Schmid, got the new general manager job out in Colorado with the Rockies. So I didn't trade Nolan Arenado to the Cardinals.
Just so everybody knows.
Hands up, bro. Like, if I would have, I also would have thrown in the $50 million to the Brewers, and they would have had Arenado sitting there at third.
Yeah, no kidding. And that's a whole nother topic. That trade in the offseason, I immediately,
mind-boggling.
I got into the small market little attitude. I said, of course, like, why wouldn't it be? We have to overpay, for everybody. Why wouldn't the Cardinals get paid to take the Gold Glove MVP candidate year in and year out? Of course it happened. But real quick, before we transition to the last segment, I wanted to get your thoughts. I came home from, took a weekend getaway in the Wisconsin Dells, and, it sucks coming back home and you want to go back to the water park and drink the Miami Vices that I was chugging down there. But I came home and I had a Corbin Burnes jersey waiting on my doorstep. So I was thrilled. What are your thoughts on, I said it before and I'll say it again, this is the best starting rotation as a whole in the history of the Milwaukee Brewers. And a few agreed. A lot of people disagreed. I said it's way too early. I said we've known about these guys for years. A lot of them, outside of, I believe, Freddie Peralta, who we acquired via trade, these guys are homegrown. They've been doing this for a while. We saw it in 2018 with that run against the Dodgers and the NLCS. Last year was kind of weird. I said, but the potential we have been noticing for a while. Am I crazy for saying that? And what are
not
some
at all?
What are some of your thoughts with that starting rotation as a whole? I think Corbin Burnes, as of right now, is the best pitcher in the National League, maybe the major leagues. But as a whole, I think from 1 to 5, they are the best.
I'm trying to make sure that I have it right here, because the Brewers had minor league pitchers of the year in 2017, I believe, is when Corbin won it. Mm-hmm. In 2016, I believe, is when Brandon won it.
Correct.
Both of them had immense success at the AA level down in Biloxi, and that was with Chris Hook. When Hook took over as the pitching coach, people said, pitching coach? Why is this guy never even been in the major leagues? What do we got going on here? But he knew what those guys' deliveries looked like when they were at their best. Now, I say it all the time, and I've talked about it on my night show at length, and some people in, Tacoma are just like, who is this cat? Like, why is this guy in Lexington, Kentucky listening to me talk about Corbin Burns' delivery motion? He spins a curveball. But when I first watched Brandon Woodruff play in the major leagues, it was the second take on his major league debut, August 1st or 2nd of the 2017 season, I believe is what it was. And he rolled through after in May, if you remember, right, he was supposed to make his debut down in St. Louis. Like 20 minutes before the game, pulls his hamstring. His entire family's in the crowd, and he's like, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to the big leagues. Figure out when this happens. Rehabs gets ready. And he pitches down in Tampa and has the bases loaded in the first 2 innings. First inning with nobody out. Second inning, I think, with 1 out. And he just calmly goes about his business, gasses 97, hits his nasty sinker, and gets out of both jams and walks off the mound like he just went 1, 2, 3. And I looked over at Timmy. I remember it to this day. I was like, well, this dude's going to be an all-star. I mean, just point it down. You don't have that kind of calm factor and moxie to you at that stage in the game and not be legit. Like, he's going to be a legit baller. And going into the 2019 season, after they go to the NLCS and they're a Chris Taylor stupid catch in the outfield away from probably going to the World Series.
God.
Greg Counsell, I still believe, Brandon, to this day, believes that if Chris Taylor drops that ball, they win the World Series. Like, whenever he brings it up, he's just like, man, Chris Taylor made a diving catch on the warning track. I don't know what you guys want us to do. Like, that was ball. And that was also the largest loss I've ever had gambling ever that same night. But as you looked at it into 19, they say, all right, we're going to put Freddie Peralta, Corbin Burns, and Brandon Woodruff in the rotation. And I'm like, yikes. Okay. I guess, you roll in with the 3 young pups, see what they got, see if they can develop. We know what happened with Corbin, right? He gave up the 11 homers and whatever it was, his first 4 starts. And you got to struggle like that to be able to unlock and unleash a different level of competitiveness. I truly believe that you got to be able to fail harshly to be able to get to that level. And Corbin did that at the major league level in 19. To his credit, busted his ass, made it personal that he was going to get back in 2020 and dominate the league again. And he did that. And Brandon was the only guy in 19 that really was a steadying force. He was going to be in the Cy Young conversation if he doesn't pull his oblique there in Arizona, gassing 101 randomly on a mid-August afternoon. And I think they also win the division if Brandon doesn't pull that oblique. But I'm not blaming anybody for the injury. And then you move it on into 2020, and they're like, hey, we're going to do it again. All right, let's figure it out. Freddie ended up in the bullpen last year, but okay. And you start seeing more development about it. And now this year, Freddie Peralta's probably taking the biggest leap out of any of the guys because I already knew Woodruff was a 1. He's going to be a 1 for a long time, and I think they need to figure out how to lock him up. Burns is going to be one of the top pitchers in the league consistently. And if it wasn't for this cat named Jacob deGrom, who's got this is the stupidest stat I've ever read, and it was last night on the show, Brandon. He's starting today. And Jacob deGrom has a .51 ERA. .51 ERA. And he's got a 2-2 record. That's just embarrassingly bad. No wonder the Mets just gassed their kidding coaches because somebody needed to lose their job. That's a fireable offense. And now Freddie is turning into a legitimate 3rd, 4th option in a rotation where they have him locked up for 5 years at $15 million.
Yeah, it's stupid.
They need to start figuring out ways to construct offers to keep those guys in Brewer uniforms for at least the length of their arbitration, because I'm not trying to go into arbitration year in and year out and talk about why these guys don't deserve an extra $2 million. That's just not what I'm about. I hated that it got to that point with Josh last year. And ultimately, I think it draws a line in the sand of when this cat leaves town. And that's across baseball, not just in Milwaukee. It's a stupid rule. It's a stupid flaw, but it's not going anywhere. Then you roll in with Burns and Woodruff. I would do it very similarly to how they did it with Braun and Fielder back in our day. What was that, 2010 when they offered both of those guys? I'd offer both of them flat line, 5 years, $100 million. We'll defer some of the money to make it a little bit more feasible on the organization. If you take it, you take it. If you don't, you don't. And if you don't, then the clock will start ticking. And as a small market, you're going to have to make a very, very difficult decision in a couple of years. But for the next 2-3 years right now, they're set up to have the best rotation in the division. They're set up to have the best rotation, I think, outside of LA in the league. And that's nothing, no words that I would have anticipated ever saying as a Brewer fan, because pitching is always what we're complaining about,
always,
and lacking. And they have it right now with two dudes that are as legit as they come. And as same deal, this is what, 2.5 months too early. I think they need one more legit bullpen guy, and you can take a little bit of pressure off my dude JP Fireeisen from Stevens Point. Other than that, man, they could use a legit option maybe at third, but from what Shaw's been doing, I'm not taking him out of the lineup right now. And maybe they move. Maybe it's something that none of us are anticipating, and they get another outfielder because they love getting outfielders. Like, I'm trying to stack up where they end up going. They could add to this team a little, but with the Jackie Bradley Juniors, the Billy McKinney, like you mentioned, Daniel Vogelbach, they're stacked in this lineup. They just have to produce.
And I everything you said, you're 100% spot on. JP coming out of that bullpen, being the River Falls native, being the Wisconsin
he's
guy,
amazing, isn't he?
It's just, man, he's and from what he did last year to this year, what a transition.
Timmy and I were interviewing him last year down in Arizona, and we're like, we had to actually ask him just to make sure that we were pronouncing his name correctly, right? And we're interviewing him, super cool. He's kind of dripping sweat like I am right now because I'm nervous and I'm on, I'm having a lot of fun here. But he sits there and all of a sudden we're like, Tim asks him the question because franchise is going to ask the dynamic questions. I just sit there and make up dumb shit. And he looks at me and goes, "So what's that going to be like? You go out on the first base line opening day if you make this roster for the Milwaukee Brewers." And he goes, "I'll tell you, I told my buddies in our group chat that I had in college and I grew up with that I got traded to the Brewers, and they're like, we're all going to opening day. We're all going to get hammered. It's going to be amazing." And he's like, "Well, I won't be, but you guys can go and get liquored up in the parking lot and have a great time. But I'll be hanging out." Like, he's like, it would just be a dream come true, man. And I'm so happy for every ounce of success that dude's gotten, because he deserves it. He's busted. And I'm always going to stand up for D3 love, man. We got a couple of D3 players on this Brewers team right now, so I'm all about it.
I absolutely, I love this Brewers team. I love them going forward. I love them, 2-3 years from now. The nucleus is there. You got the pitchers. You got the best end bullpen by far in the National League. And you got the manager, and you got the front office, and you got an owner willing to do what he needs to do. Reports out where that Justin Turner, he said himself that offer was real. Like, he was on the phone with Mark and Yelich and Craig. Like, this Brewers team, they get a lot, they don't get a lot of attention nationally, and that's fine.
No.
We like it that way, but the nucleus is there. They're going forward. They're going to be really good. Now, moving forward, transitioning to the Milwaukee Bucks real quick before I let you go, because you're a national radio host guy and you probably are tired.
I'm just glad we're not talking about Aaron. Like, to be honest with you, man, I could sit on here for 5 hours and just not talk about Aaron. That's all good, man.
We do, off topic real quick, I do a Packers podcast as well, and we did a show Sunday night, and I was like, I feel bad for Eric Stokes. I feel bad for Amari Rodgers. All those guys, Josh Myers, and because nobody cares about who the Packers drafted, and they had probably one of the best drafts in football, like in the NFL. Like, they address needs, and
it's Brian's best draft.
I think it was too.
Yep.
But
after it's his best draft.
So moving to the Bucks real quick in just a few minutes, and we'll wrap up. a guy that I was really high on, a guy that I really liked coming out of Villanova, a guy that was almost traded in the offseason, maybe should have been, Dante DiVincenzo. Last game, he put up 0 points against the Brooklyn Nets. His last 5 games, he had 11, 3, 9, and 3. I mean, not very good. Going forward into the postseason, are you concerned with Dante DiVincenzo as far as production? Now, I defensively, I like him. He's a scrapper. He's a willing defender. He puts his body out there. Is Dante somebody that they need going forward to produce? Because I'm under the opinion that he does. You don't need 20. You don't need 20 and 10. You need about 10 to 15. Night in and night out, because what Giannis is going to see. He's going to see. He sees a 90% triple team every game since like 2018. Drew Holiday is going to be there, but he's also your best defender. And then Chris Middleton, we all know, needs to put up or shut up, with the max money. But Dante's a guy that's kind of forgetting on this Bucks team. And then when he has a really good game, you notice, because he's, scoring 20, 25 points, and he's, shooting 60% from the three-point range. And he's flashy. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think he needs to be the number 4 guy on this team, or, maybe the number 5, but I need more than no points. Like, you're going up against a team that in Brooklyn. Now, I'm not just critiquing that one game. He's had multiple struggles. He's had a few good games. To not score against the Brooklyn Nets, you almost have to try. They don't play defense. So going forward for this Bucks to make a run, is Dante DiVincenzo, in your opinion, somebody that needs to step up? And he's going to be looking for a contract in a few years here.
I'm kind of a bad person to ask about this, Brandon, because you get the rock in your hands, you got to be able to produce. Like, that's just one way that I've always looked at it. If they're trusting you to be on the floor, you got to put something up. And it's the same deal with Pat Connaughton, right? Mm-hmm. Like, same deal with Bryn Forbes, as I mentioned. Like, I laugh at his name because I think it's funny and I think it's a cute name, but like, he's got to produce when he gets to the rock. Like, that's just the only way that you can say it. And for Dante, it's kind of an unquantifiable trait to have and a characteristic. He plays better with better players. Mm-hmm. And there's guys that do that. There's guys that are much better, Jamal Crawford, when you're playing with bad players, right? When you're playing with the second and third unit. Same with Lou Williams, right? Sweet Lou is a little bit better when he's the guy and he knows that nobody else can really score on the unit. That being said, 0 points you can't have that. But I will say this about Dante. He needs to be a little bit more calculated in some of the risks that he takes. I think that's the one part of it. The points per game and what he puts up offensively, I think those are going to come. And I think with opportunities and with a couple of better looks, he'll be able to knock down a few shots. But he needs to be more calculated in the risks that he takes defensively. I know I look back at what game was it a couple of weeks ago where he blows past dude in the corner and he hits the game tying 3 and you're looking around like, what are you trying to go for a steal there for? You're up 3. All you need to do is keep Phoenix game.
I broke quick story. I told my viewers and listeners this. I broke my phone that night because I threw it down. Bro, I was so mad at that game. I mean, there was like 5 times the Bucks should have won. They could have won. Absolutely. Yes, I totally agree. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No
doubt, bro. It's just got to be more calculated. Like those are, and I get it. You're a high energy guy. You're a defensive minded dude. You just got to be a little bit more calculated and the on ball and off ball awareness factor. That's one of the reasons why I love taking him out of Villanova, because while the 0 points against Brooklyn is fresh, the one that still lives rent-free in my mind is that dude costing me a bunch of money when he rolled Michigan in the national championship game night of opening day. Your boy had a few more beverages than probably I should have. Uber was a long trip back to Waukesha, and I'm hanging out sitting in the Uber. I'm like, oh, Michigan plus getting 7.5. Yeah, thanks. Oh, for sure, Wagner. And then this cat Dante rolls off and drops a 35 piece on me and costs me all the cash that I had. So like that part of it still lives rent free in my mind. I still have Dante. At that point. like in my brain and in my mental state. They do need to have a little bit more from him on the offensive side. However, I don't know where you're vastly improving with Dante off the roster. I know there were a couple of possibilities of who you could have went with in the trade deadline season and in the buyout market as well. But I really like the addition of PJ Tucker, and I think he adds exactly what they needed, a physical defender. And I'm down to watch PJ Tucker defend Kevin Durant for that entire series.
I love
dude,
PJ
It's going to be so much fun to watch. He irritates every single person, and I absolutely love it.
I again, credit to John Horst. I mean, another phenomenal in-season acquisition, off-season, obviously locking up Giannis. I guess it was technically in-season, but whatever. Real quick before we end the show, I ask every guest this that comes on: who wins a title first, Bucks or Brewers? It's a tough question because you could see both teams. It's tough.
It's tough because I think this year's NBA is the most wide open chase for a title that I've been able to see in the last 15 years. Since LeBron came in and actually hit this level where everybody's going to LeBron's level, there have been 5 maybe, and that's being very generous, teams that can win the NBA Finals. I think there's legit 5 or 6 teams right now that I could see hoisting the Larry O'Brien. I think 3 of them are in the Eastern Conference, and that is saying if Embiid is completely dialed in, not hitting the poker table at Potawatomi night before Game 3. Go off onto the Western side. I love Phoenix. I think they are so well built and constructed, and they have probably the best leader in the game right now, and that's Chris Paul. Mm-hmm. And Devin Booker is just too young and dumb to know any better, and he's putting up great numbers, and DeAndre Ayton's a freak. The Lakers are the Lakers. That they showed last night that they can beat anybody on any given night without LeBron. You saw AD and KCP doing the we're back kind of thing. They're a dangerous club. I don't want to come anywhere near them. And I also think we're really discrediting the LA Clippers. Whatever Kawhi and Paul George got going on, if Kawhi is dialing in the flight and the travel plans, then maybe there's still some friction there. But that team is still really, really well constructed as well. So I still think there's 6. You can throw Utah in there, but I see them a little bit more paper mache and a little bit more like an Atlanta Hawks team when they had the undefeated month when Mike Budenholzer was down there, right? And they got steamrolled by LeBron. Yeah. I don't see Utah holding firm against Phoenix. I see them getting smoked by the Clippers. They go up against the Lakers. I don't think it ends very well for them. But there's 6 teams I think that can win the NBA Finals. So I'll say the Bucks because I think that they will get there this year. And I know that's blasphemy because everybody's kind of written them off at this point. I'm going to go with the Bucks. They deserve a parade, and the Brewers got theirs when they lost in '82. I don't know. People have just told me that because I also wasn't.
we weren't around for that.
No, I wasn't alive, and I don't try to act like I was.
I just know, and I know you know this for working radio in Milwaukee for the time that you have. The city's just dying for something. They just 2018 into 2019 with that Brewers run and then the Bucks run into that spring of 2019 against the Toronto Raptors. I mean, we were just right there. I mean, just so close. And if we're still celebrating 1982, and I'm a big fan of the 82 team. I'm a big fan of the logo, but I am sick of celebrating the 1982 team.
Oh yeah. I got all the little mini bobbles they gave for the 25th anniversary. And I'm like, why am I looking at this Mike Caldwell? They didn't even win the World Series.
Yep. I am over it. I am ready, as I know you are, to see a championship in the city of Milwaukee. The fans have they deserve it. Needless to say, there's not a fan base, in my opinion. I've been all over the world. From my time in the military, there's not a fan base like Milwaukee. There's just not. They're the best, most loyal fans that there are. Obviously, that reaches up to Green Bay as well. But to end the show, I appreciate you, man, coming on. I know you are a busy man. Your time is greatly appreciated here. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not following him, follow him on Twitter. He's at Bill Schmid Radio. Catch him on 97.3 The Game. I don't know your schedule there, so I don't want to get that wrong. And also at Sports Map Radio. He's the national night host, I believe. Is it nightly 9 to 12?
Yep, nightly correct? 9 to 12 here in Wisconsin, and then I'm on 97.3 The Game with Drew and KB from 3 to 6. They call me Billy Muscles, which is weird because I haven't worked out in like 4 years. and then mostly I host a show called No BS 6 to 7 on The Game, and you're going to come on as well here coming up here shortly, dude. I appreciate you having me on, and same deal. You just mentioned it. Thank you for everything that you've done before this as well, and keep rolling with it, dude. It looks really good, and it's sounding really, really good, too.
Thank you. And for everybody out there, that will do it for today's show. Again, I greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, all that good stuff. Follow us on social media, on Twitter and Facebook at Brew City Pod. I am your host, Brandon. You can go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Wisco_Brandon. Don't forget, guys, we are sponsored by Fanatics. Jump over on Fanatics. Jump on the social media, Twitter or Facebook page. The link is pinned at the top of the page. Click that link. Shop for your favorite teams. Draft season, NBA seasons, playoffs are starting. MLB's in full throttle. They got all kinds of good deals. Free shipping right now, I think, through the end of May. So jump on there at Fanatics. Yeah, and I appreciate it. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you guys again Friday. That'll do it for today's show. Have a great day. Let's go, Milwaukee.
Hey guys, as always, thank you so much for tuning into the Brew City Lounge. If you need to catch up all your Bucks and Brewers, please tune into our social media pages. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Brew City Pod. Also, don't forget, subscribe and download wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Thanks so much.